as NFL players start announcing their intent to hold out of training camp in 2020, do the Buffalo Bills have anything to worry about? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this holdout edition of Believers Talk, where we ask ourselves, could there be a Buffalo Bills player who is going to hold out at the start of the 2020 NFL season? Again, thank you guys for joining me. My name is Joe. If you're new to this channel, guys, please be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. After you hit that subscribe button, you want to hit that notification bell. YouTube will notify you when we post new content as we talk about the potential of a Buffalo Bills player holding out to start 2020 training camps. We've heard from some players that may have maybe thinking about holding out, and also we want to take a look at 2019. Who are some players that held out in 2019, and what can we learn from them? Again, guys, while you're here, hit that thumbs up button, like this video, leave a comment. I'm going to give you two Buffalo Bills who could potentially hold out. I'm not going to wait to the end of the video, guys. I do not think that the Buffalo Bills have to worry about anybody holding out, but if we were to worry about it, if I were to name a couple players, I'm going to get into two names that I think possibly could hold out if, dominoes fall the wrong way for the Buffalo Bills, but we'll see what happens. So first, we're going to go back to 2019. Let's go back a year. No COVID, nothing to worry about. No worries about fans not being in the stands, nothing like that. Good times, right? Remember the good old days. Hopefully we get back to those days here shortly. But in 2019, there were actually 6 holdouts. There were 6 guys that held out, at least in training camp. There are 2 players that their holdout lasted until the regular season, so we'll talk about them as well. So first, you had Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys. He held out of training camp last year, and we all know what happened. Ezekiel Elliott ended up getting paid, right? He was the second highest paid running back, third highest paid running back in the NFL, and he definitely didn't earn his money last year. Then you had Yannick Ngakoue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ngakoue just has not been happy with the Jaguars. Even this past offseason, you heard about the Twitter dispute between him and one of the owners of the Jaguars, or the owner's son of the Jaguars, going back and forth on Twitter about the fact that Yannick Ngakoue is not happy with Jacksonville and he wants out. And then Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints. This one was the surprise of last season. I feel like every year there's at least one surprise that no one sees coming. And as a Bills fan, that means that we have to be ready for something, right? We always have to be ready. We always have to be prepared just in case something does happen. Now, Michael Thomas also got paid, and he earned every cent of that contract, proving that he is one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. But there were also 2 names who started their holdout for training camp, but that lasted into the regular season. You had Melvin Gordon, running back for the Chargers, and he was kind of hoping, since Ezekiel Elliott got paid high money, that would happen to him. The Chargers called out his bluff because they had a better backup running back than the Cowboys thought they did, since the Cowboys just drafted their backup running back at the time. And the Chargers went ahead and rolled with that. So Melvin Gordon held out up until week 4 of the NFL season. Then he came back to play. Remember, if your holdout lasts too long, it doesn't accrue a full season in the NFL. I believe it's after week 7 that's the case. So Melvin Gordon held out the first 4 weeks. I believe the Chargers had a bye week the following week. And so Melvin Gordon came back that next week, that next game for the Chargers. Really had a rocky season after that. It was really tough for him to get going, especially without missing the training camps, with missing time with his teammates. Things like that really impacts you more than you believe it does going into the season, especially if you're going to go into the season that way and not play any preseason games either. I just didn't think that was a smart move by Melvin Gordon. I missed out on some money by holding out the way he did. And then Trent Williams of the Washington Redskins ended up not playing at all last season for the Redskins, held out, and then I believe they put him on IR even for a time period. He was just unhappy completely with the situation there in Washington. Now, we know that Jadeveon Clowney ended up with a new team, right? Jadeveon Clowney went to the Seattle Seahawks after he held out. And so that could also happen. You could have someone holding out, and then they can have another team. We saw that a few years ago as well. This constantly happens where a player will hold out and then eventually the team will trade him, and that's what happened to Jadeveon Clowney. Got traded to the Seahawks, and now Jadeveon Clowney, still without a team this year, apparently had turned down a huge offer by the Seattle Seahawks to stay with them. So I'm not sure what he's waiting for, but he's still listed as a free agent. So now we move on to 2020, and we heard from Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, running back of the Minnesota Vikings, already saying, listen, he's going to hold out for some in training camp now. For training camp. So will this work out the way it worked out for Ezekiel Elliott and get him a payday? He just saw Christian McCaffrey get paid of the Carolina Panthers. However, we all know Dalvin Cook, not exactly as good of a running back or as versatile as a running back as a Christian McCaffrey, but maybe he's looking for a little bit more of a payday at that regard. Or will this work like it did for Melvin Gordon, and teams are on to the running back saying, you know what, we don't need to pay you top dollar because after a while we realize that you are replaceable. The running back position is proven to be one of the most easily replaced positions in the NFL. So how will it work out for Dalvin Cook, with his holdout? How long will his holdout last? Hopefully the teams can come together, a team and his agent can come together on an agreement of some sort, so that way Dalvin Cook can play the regular season with the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe he gets traded for some draft picks or something along the line for the Vikings as well. So when you look at certain NFL circles, you ask yourselves, who are some of the potential holdouts for 2020? Who could potentially hold out on their team in 2020 heading into training camps? Now it looks like training camps will start in mid-July. Who are the guys that aren't happy with their contracts or aren't happy with the team, and they made that abundantly clear? And there are two names that pop out at you right away. And the first one, again, is Yannick Ngakoue. Again, Yannick Ngakoue got into a little bit of a Twitter fight with the owner's son about not wanting to be on the Jacksonville Jaguars still. He still hasn't had a new contract. He probably won't even sign a new contract with the Jaguars if one was offered to him. So I would not be surprised to see maybe Yannick Ngakoue still possibly move before the start of the 2020 NFL season. The next one is Malcolm Jenkins, safety of the Philadelphia Eagles. Back in January, Jenkins said he's not going to be playing under his current contract in 2020. So he was already ready to hold out come January of 2020. So I can't think with all this time it's gotten any better. He hasn't signed a new contract yet, so expect to see him possibly holding out. Now, the fact the Eagles signed Darius Leigh might be a little bit of a different story now that he knows that he has a running mate in that backfield, in the defensive backfield, that could help him out. The Eagles were depleted at defensive backs last season and just weren't good. So now Malcolm Jenkins might have a running buddy, and he might be a little more willing to play for a little bit less pay, but expect to see Malcolm Jenkins hold out. And then the third name I have is a guy who signed a franchise tag. I don't see him holding out. He just doesn't seem like that type of guy. But if anyone deserves to hold out, it's this guy. And that's Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. The fact that everyone in Dallas is getting paid minus Dak Prescott, that should say something if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. If you're Dak Prescott or Dak Prescott's agent, that should tell you something. And we're not even going to really talk about, other than right now, the fact that one of the big stories in the NFL right now surrounding the NFL is the lack of story from Jerry Jones, the lack of talk from Jerry Jones regarding all this racial tension that's going on in the world right now. So will that have something to do with Dak Prescott holding out as well, not being happy with his owner, not being happy with the pay, not being happy with his current stance or lack thereof with these racial issues going on in the world right now? Lots of things that you can look at Dak Prescott and say, he could hold out on the Dallas Cowboys, which would really put the Dallas Cowboys behind the 8 ball when it comes to having your quarterback come the start of training camp. Now, I don't see a Dak Prescott holdout holding it much longer than training camp, just due to the fact that he did sign the franchise tag. He does want to accrue this season, and that way he can either sign a bigger contract with Dallas or move on, whatever the case might be. So now we look at the Buffalo Bills. Is there anybody on the Buffalo Bills who might hold out to start training camp in 2020? You look at 2019, like I said, no one expected Michael Thomas to hold out, but he did. So are there anyone on the Buffalo Bills who you don't expect to hold out but might just do that? Like I said, I had two names who might not be happy with the current contract situation. I personally think they have no issue with their contract situation. We haven't heard anything, but two guys that if they had issue, you might be able to understand it. The first guy, and I think this name should be on everyone's list if the Buffalo Bills had a holdout. Again, I don't think we will, but if the Bills would have a player hold out, you have to consider Matt Milano as a potential holdout at that linebacker position. Matt Milano is to make $2.1 million this season in base salary, and if you look at his contract structure, that's the most he's made so far in his NFL career, and it's the most he's made in his NFL career by over $1 million. So they really backloaded his contract, which really might work out in the Buffalo Bills' favor and help him not hold out. You know, last year his base salary was only $645,000, and that was good for, I believe, like 180th as far as linebackers go in the NFL. Right now, $2.1 million. That moves him up obviously a little bit. Still a little bit lower than where I think he deserves to be. I think Matt Milano is a much better linebacker than what he got picked at as far as the draft goes and what he's being paid. I think he's a great linebacker in the NFL. Obviously, Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills have to make some tough decisions, not only at that linebacker spot, but really all around this roster coming next season. When you talk about Matt Milano, his contract runs out at the end of this season. So what's going to happen heading into that 2021 season? Is he going to get paid? There are a couple other guys that you have to ask yourself the same question about. Are they going to get paid going into 2021 and beyond? The other guy that I think about is John Feliciano. Listen, when the Buffalo Bills signed John Feliciano last season, he was one of a million offensive linemen that the Buffalo Bills signed, right? You talk about the depth that the Buffalo Bills had at the offensive lineman. Most people believe that John Feliciano may be a backup at the start of last season. Now, we all know that John Feliciano ended up starting most of last season just due to injuries to the Buffalo Bills offensive line and due to John Feliciano's versatility. I love John Feliciano. I think he's a great player, a great addition to the Buffalo Bills offensive line, and I expect him to start again this year. But since he was signed last season to potentially a backup role, the money isn't quite there, right? He's due to make $2.65 million this season as an starting offensive guard in the NFL, and that's way below the average for an offensive guard. Now, the Buffalo Bills do have an opt-out clause in John Feliciano's contract for this season. So if John Feliciano were to decide to hold out, which I don't think he would, and this is one of the reasons why, he would have to be very careful because the Buffalo Bills could get out of his contract, and if the Buffalo Bills feel like they could replace him at offensive guard, which I don't know if they can at this point, but if they felt like they could replace him for $2.65 million, they could easily just let him go, and it would only cost $1 million in the dead cap for the Buffalo Bills. So that's where he would have to be careful. I didn't mention Tre'Davious White. I really hope we don't see a holdout from him. The Buffalo Bills recently signing his 5th-year option. So we know that we have him for next year and hopefully the season after. Hopefully sometime next year during the offseason, we can come to terms on a much bigger contract, something that the cornerback deserves. Again, one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback in the game. Not getting paid like it on his rookie contract still, but hopefully the money will come, and hopefully it comes with our Buffalo Bills. So again, let me know what you think in the comment section. If the Buffalo Bills were going to have a holdout this year, if a player was going to hold out, who would it be? Again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Buffalo Bills are safe. I don't think that they're going to hold out. But like we saw with Michael Thomas last year, and as we've seen in the past, surprises happen. Sometimes players hold out at the beginning of training camp just to make a statement. Who's going to make that statement? Right now, we know Dalvin Cook is going to hold out in 2020. We've heard rumors that Malcolm Jenkins is going to hold out in 2020. And Yannick Ngakoue, you have to expect that he probably will hold out to start off 2020 as well. Who else will it be? Will it be a Buffalo Bill? Again, guys, I thank you for joining me on this edition of Believers Talk. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like this video. And if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe to Believers Talk for continual Buffalo Bills and Buffalo sports news. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.